weddings, and all that took place that we looked at last couple of weeks ago now. And so when Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is the desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into villages and buy themselves victuals. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart. Give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looked up to heaven. He blessed and brake, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, beside women and children. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitude away. And when he had sent the multitude away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. Father, would you bless your word tonight? And the simple thought, Lord, I pray you'd encourage us. Lord, I pray that you would use this passage in our lives to tap into this morning and the greater theme. God, stir us up, direct us. And Father, I pray that you'd bless this night. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The lad, the lunch, and the Lord. It's sometimes I had this issue with Genesis, that you come to a passage and you think, okay, I know this story because you learn them in Sunday school. This is like one of the Sunday school stories that goes through, and every kid knows this. It's in the children's books, that the feeding of the 5,000. Like I said, I found that with Genesis, when you go through it and you're reading about Joseph, it's like, okay, I know the Sunday school story, but what's it actually in the Bible for? What's it to teach us? What's it there for? Rather than just a story to fill up the page. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's a great Sunday school story. Yes, it's a great children's book story, Joseph, or whether it's the feeding of the 5,000. But it's not written just to children, though this is about a child. It's written to us. It's written to those who follow Jesus, and it's carried down to us for our learning. This is one of the stories that are actually rarely is covered in all 4 Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all covers the feeding of the 5,000. They had the same basic facts. That they went to a desert place or a remote place. It would seem, if you had a map and you looked at it and you understood where the Sea of Galilee was. I've mentioned this before. It's probably in the back of your Bible. You could probably find a map if you had one there. But if you had the Sea of Galilee, Sea of Tiberias, same thing, Sea of Galilee, on the left-hand side at, like, if it was a clock, think of it as sort of a teardrop size shape, the Sea of Galilee. At like 10 o'clock is where Capernaum is, Capernaum or Capernaum. At about 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock is where Tiberias is now. If you were to go to like 1 o'clock and towards the north and just a little bit further, seems to be where the Sermon on the Mount was preached, but it also seems to be where Jesus has gone here to get away. I used Google Maps, that wonderful tool that helps in these things, from where Bethsaida is, where they may have gone, where it seems that they have gone, from where Capernaum is. It's about an hour and 20-minute walk. It's not very far. It's 5 or 6 kilometers up the road. And so it says in some of the Gospels that they saw Jesus leaving by boat to go into a desert place, and they ran. Well, if you're running 5 or 6 kilometers, you'll get there in 30 minutes. And it says some of them got there and they knew where he was going. They got there before he even got there. So he's going along to the north part of the Sea of Galilee, it would seem, to get away and just to be in a desert place, to be remote. Not desert, don't think desert as the Sahara Desert, think as deserted, no one's around, nothing. And that's where they're trying to go, get some isolation and some privacy, except the multitudes go out there. They follow him out of the city and they travel those kilometers and they end up there with him and gets off the boat, and there's people, and then more people are coming. So all the story says the same thing. They went to a remote place or a desert place. The disciples, then all the people came to him. There was multitudes that were there. the disciples were concerned about food. And they find that in all of the issues that they've been preaching all day. They went in the morning and all the way through lunchtime and into the afternoon. And there's this mass group of people and there's no food. They just ran to follow Jesus. They didn't really think about planning this out. And they just came there and they're hungry. All of them say that. And the disciples were quite concerned. Send the people away, Jesus. Send them away. Let them go get some food. Let them send them into the villages somewhere around that they can buy some bread or buy some food from those around them. And Jesus says, "No, what have we got here?" And we find out that they have 5 loaves and 2 fish. We find in John that it was Andrew that goes and brings them to Jesus and brings the lad. But there's 5,000 men, it says, that ate, plus women and children, and that there were 12 baskets left over, the main basic facts. Each of the Gospels then takes a slightly different take on the same story and look at it from a different angle. In Mark's account, he says that Jesus saw the multitude and he had compassion on them, and he says, and they were as sheep having no shepherd. And then he said, make them all sit down in companies by rank and by hundreds and by 50s. And so you have this shepherding sort of nature of Jesus that Mark lays out, that he is like the good shepherd. He is the shepherd of Israel, and he sees them hungry, the flock before him, and he has compassion on them. Luke connects it with the kingdom and the power of the kingdom. And it says that he mentions that he spake unto them of the kingdom of God and healed them. Now, he's the one that mentions that what he taught them was about the kingdom of God. John, you should know this one, John links it differently and separately. John uses the feeding of the 5,000 for one of the I am statements. Dramatic pause as someone answers. I am the bread of life. Jesus uses this, John uses it because Jesus then goes and teaches it that he is the bread of life. You sought me because you wanted your bellies full. But he says, I'm going to tell you something that you actually need more than just the physical. And he says, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part with me. I am the bread of life. I am he that have come down from heaven. And they walked away offended. But he's saying, you're greater need than the physical on that side. He teaches them the next day on the other side of the lake that your greatest need is spiritual. And you need to have faith in me, for I am the bread of life. And you sought me. He says, I know you're seeking me because you saw a miracle and you want another miracle. And he teaches them, but uses it. And John was greatly moved by that, and teaches that Jesus is the bread of life, one of the I am statements about Jesus that are found in John. So they use it all slightly differently. Matthew's account, he uses it as compassion, and he has the compassion of the king and the needs there that are laid out before him. He had compassion on them and was moved with compassion when he saw their hunger. So they're all used slightly differently, but I just want to make this simple point to you, which he says, what do we have? How can we feed these? In fact, in John's account, and here he says as well, when the disciples came to him, this is the desert place, the time has passed, verse 15, send the multitude away that they may go into the villages. They're pleading with Jesus, let them go. Just let them go. They're hungry. And Jesus says, they need not depart. Give ye them to eat. You feed them. And they're thinking, well, hang on, we don't have anything. They don't have anything. Well, you want us to feed? And then in John's account, he says, well, what do you have? And then go find out what you have. And they're running around, I guess. And they come to find a little lad, as we find in John's account, that the little lad comes along. And here he has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, and that's it. And then the disciples are like, what can we do? What is this little amount? It literally is a lad's lunch. Don't think of like they've hauling in massive big barramundi and they're bringing in that. They're like little sardines. They're like little things that this kid's got that he has in his lunch, and he happens to have a couple of loaves of bread with him as well. And don't think like big loaves. Just think like a bread roll or a dinner roll or something small that he has. And here he has just a little bit thrown into a sack that he was going to go follow the rest of the crowd. He said, my brother is going out, and his mum is out the door is saying, hey, before you go, take this with you. And he'd take the fish and take the bread, and he'd take a little bit with you because you're going to get hungry out there. Here's a little bit. and he just put a little bit in his sack, and off, yeah, Mum, all right, yeah, okay, thanks. Throw it in the bag, and off he goes. I imagine that's sort of how that went. And off he went to go with everybody else to go out to see the crowds, and he has a little bit because his mum supplied a little bit, and the lad is all he's got. He's got a little lad and a little lunch, and the disciples are like, what are we going to do with this? And it says in John's account, he asked them to prove them, because he himself knew what he would do. And Jesus always knows what he's going to do. We get to situations where we say, what are we going to do in this situation? And Jesus goes, I know exactly what I'm going to do in this situation. He never has a situation where he says, I don't know what to do. That's us. That's the disciples. And Jesus asks us, hey, what do you think we should do? Not because he's needing counsel and he needs ideas. He already knows what he's going to do. And he is training his disciples and building their faith and showing them, hey, I've got the situation under control, and I can use what we have. And what we have is 2 fish and 5 loaves. And he looked up to heaven, he blessed it, he broke it, and he gave it. And they did all eat and were filled. I don't know how that works. I genuinely don't know how that works. Did he just continue? Did he take the sack and then just hand out some fish and some bread to one of the disciples, and they went off to one group that was sitting, the 50 people that were sitting over here, and then the next one came, Bartholomew came through, and he grabbed out some fish and some bread, and he went off to the next one, and he kept digging into that little lad's sack lunch and just kept giving it out to the disciples, and he went to the next group of 100, and he went to the next group of 50, and they came back, and he kept giving it out and giving it out and giving it out, and they were like, what is going on in that sack? How is it just continually replenishing? That's not unusual. There is another story in the Bible that is very similar. The widow with the oil that just kept pouring it out and then poured it out and then kept pouring it out. It says just get every container that you can find, borrow from everybody, and the more containers, it kept pouring it out and pouring it out. And they're like, what is going on here? But he used it. He's saying, man, I'm going to keep doing this. And then they went around and collected the remnants, and there's 12 baskets that are left over, and you started with a little sack lunch, and you end up with what left over is 12 baskets. That's incredible. They're looking at each other going, how did this happen? I don't know. How did this happen? But it left an indelible mark upon their lives that it greatly affected them. And the disciples and all of those that were there, it had such an effect on them that they wanted to come the next day to find him do it again. Feed us again. That was good. Whatever you did, however you did it, we're interested for you doing that again. And they followed him. But also it says that Jesus also sends the people away because they were willing in that very moment to make him king. Is it in Luke's account or maybe John's account? It was so impactful to the people that they realized this is more than just a prophet. He's not just a regular person here. There's something else going on here. People don't do this. He was healing the sick before, and now he's feeding us. Who is this man? We need to make him king. They rose up and they wanted to make him the king. So they understood that this miracle was impactful, and there was a lot more going on here than just feeding some bellies. I guess lots of people have preached on this over the years, and I've heard it from different ways and different people preaching. The one that I remember the most was when I was in Bible college and one of the men came to preach. I think it was Kenny Baldwin, actually, that was preaching it. And he preached about the lad and the lunch. And he said, and it made me think about the lad and the lunch, that he said he didn't have much, but he said he had a mother that provided for him. A mother that put something, that gave him something that might not have seemed much, that he had received something from his mother. His mother didn't just send him out the door empty, gave him something in his life that he took and gave him a lunch, and then God greatly multiplied what his mother put into his life. And I think, man, that's a great thought. Like sometimes you might be thinking, I have very little to offer my children. I have very little. What influence can I give into my child, to my son, to my daughter? I don't have the wisdom of the ages. I don't have the nous, the skills. This job is bigger than I am. Well, just take comfort that there was a mother probably that has given this lad some food, and then he took it and placed what his mother gave him, placed it in the hand of the master. The Lord took it and greatly multiplied it beyond whatever she could. She just sowed something, and the Lord greatly multiplied it. That's great. That should take confidence in that, to think, well, it's not what I do. It's what God can do. Let me just be faithful in the little things. Let me be faithful in what I have to give. Let me be faithful just to pack him a lunch. Let me just give it. It might not be fancy. Might not be big. It might not be the best thing you've ever done. She might be even thinking, had I had more time, I probably could have got an apple in there, and I could have done this in there, and I could have changed the lunch, and I could have made him a sandwich. And they were just raw materials that she just took out of the cabinet and just threw into his lunch, probably. It was ill-prepared because of the moment. She thought, if I had more time, if I could do it again, I'd do it differently. I think as I get older and I have kids that are now getting to the stage to fly the coop, don't you have the thoughts that you think, man, if I just could do it again, I'd probably do it differently. You might do this differently or do that differently. But at the end of the day, you just got to trust. Okay, God, we've done a little bit here. God, would you multiply this? Would you take this from them? And would you make it, multiply it, and make it greater than what we've ever done here? Would you bring forth a harvest that is far greater than what has been sown into their lives? Because God is able to do that. God can take the little, and with little is much when God is in it. Did you notice the last song do you ever notice the songs that we sing? Good. But the last song that we sang was little is much when God is in it. We sang that deliberately. I asked Connor, can we sing that tonight? He said, absolutely. And he reached into his repertoire and we got to sing it. Little is much when God is in it. Just takes a little bit and he does big things with little. That's our God. That's him. That's this story. He fed 5,000 people of men. Men have appetites. And then there were women and children. But he fed them all sufficiently. They had enough. There was extra left over. That's who we serve. That's the Jesus that we serve. He took the little and made much of it. And that lad, he took the little fella. He used the little fella. He didn't go for the biggest person. He didn't go for the adult. He went for the little person. God uses little people. Ben was asking me on the way to church this morning. He said, Dad, this is just Ben's thinking. And we're driving, just he and I were driving to church this morning, and we were driving, and he says, Dad, if someone asked you, and they said, are you going to work? He says, would you say that you're going to work today? I was like, and he's like, we going to church? I'm going to church, but you're going to work, Dad. Like he was, and I was like, well, maybe, like I'm going to church as well, but I guess that is my job, and I am going to work. I said, yeah, so it is my job. And Ben always gives you questions that go, oh, okay, yeah. So he said, are you going to work today, Dad? If someone asks, you going to work? Yeah, I'm going to work. I guess I'm driving to work. Okay, yeah. And then he says, I said, I guess that's my job. I'm the pastor of the church, and I lead the church here. He says, do you think when I'm old that I will be the pastor of the church? And I said, probably not. I don't know. Like, that's a big thing. There's lots of difference. I said, what I do know is that if you serve God today, he'll lead you to tomorrow and the next day and the next day after, and who knows how God will use you. I just said, be faithful to him today. God will use you however he wants to use you. You say, oh, God doesn't use 8-year-olds. He doesn't even have to wait till he's 18 or 28 or 48. God uses 8-year-olds. In fact, there's a very famous 8-year-old in the Bible used of God. It is Josiah. King Josiah, he ended up on the throne, and he sat on the throne as an 8-year-old, and as much as he was helped by whoever it was, the priest that was helping him, it does say this about Josiah in the Bible, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. An 8-year-old did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. There is a law in, did you see this in Victoria? Man, Victoria is our California. Melbourne is in fact, people are literally moving out of Melbourne because of the crime rates, and they don't like that city. That city is crime rate central. But anyway, there was a story I saw on the news this week where there was Oh, it was the girl that had 106 charges, and she was out saying, where do Jews live? And then she mounted a curb and tried to run someone over, and she had 106 charges to her name, and they tossed it all. They threw it out because she was 11 or 12 years of age. And basically there's a law, I don't know if it's a nationwide law, but there is a law, at least in Victoria, that if between 10 and 13, it's some Latin phrase that basically says, well, if you're between 11 and 13, 10 and 13, you're not mentally, in the legal perspective, they say they're not mentally developed enough to understand what is right and wrong. And so therefore we can't hold them accountable for the actions that they made. And her 106 charges were thrown out. Her name is not released. None of those charges will be laid against her name, and she walks free. There was another boy, 11 or 12 years of age, has 250 something charges against his name, and also happened, they wiped them all, and he let him go free because they said, he's 12, he doesn't know right from wrong, and he's not sure what is right. Well, Josiah was 8, and God says he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He cut down idols and groves. And he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. 8-year-olds can serve God. 8-year-olds know what's right and wrong. Can't just say, well, they're at this age as we wipe it out. No. They know what's right and wrong. Hey, Ben, are you allowed to steal a car and try and run people over? Hopefully that's not the reason why you're not doing it. He says, I don't know how to drive a car yet. If you could drive a car, should you mount the curb and run people over? No. An 8-year-old knows that that's not right. That's good. A lad. This lad, God took the little, put it in the master's hand, and it multiplied. God uses little people. God uses young people. And it wasn't much. It was not just that it was a lad, it was a lunch. That lunch wasn't big. It wasn't a massive spread. It wasn't lots and lots of food. It was about as little of amount of food you could possibly get. And God took the little and made much of it. Shouldn't just be a story that we read, and this is where it encourages me. I look at us and think, we're not much. We're not much. We're really not much. Even I'm reminded of that again and again. And every single week someone says, oh, it's the little church over there. I know which church. Oh, the little one over there. And someone said today they came to church and their kids were like, hey, Mom, which church are we going to today? And they said, can we go to the one with the big cross? And it was the other one that's down in road. And he goes, why do you want to go there? Because there's lots of big grass and it's a big area and it's a big church. And she said, no, we're going to go to the little church. And he's like, oh, we wanted to go to the big church. And I said, why do you want to go to the big church? She said, because it's got lots of grass and we can run around and it's big. And she said, well, she said, God, what do I say at this moment? She said, well, which one? And I like this. She said to the child, well, which one do you think worships Jesus better? And straight away, oh, the little church. I was like, yay. And she was like, yay. And so she was like, all right. And she's, that's where we're going. She's like, excellent, great, all right. And she was off. And the child was like, great, we're going to little church. But I think we don't have to be little. I was thinking, oh, I'm glad they wanted to come here, and I'm glad the kid wanted to come here, and I'm glad they wanted to come for good reasons. But I think, oh, yeah, we're little. Yeah, okay, we're little. We're just a little group. We're not just the band of 50 that you have to divide the church into bands of 50 and hundreds. That'd be nice. We're just like a single band. We're just like 50 people. That's all we are. It's 50 people. And sometimes a little bit under, and sometimes it's a little bit over. And we're around 50 people. And you think that's not much in the whole scheme of things. But you know what? You don't have to be great and big with a massive big influence and big social media and big flashing lights and big facilities and a big name to be able to reach people and do great things. You actually just need to be placed in the hand of the Master and let the Lord do something. Just be used of God. Say, God, we're not much. We offer very little, but we come with what we have and we're going to place it in your hands. And God, if you just be faithful, it will be faithful to you. Would you just multiply and make us reach more and be able to reach more? I've said before, we've had so many babies. I say so many for a church of 50. There's been so many babies born in the last, or at least pregnant ladies that have been in here for the last 6 or 9 months. And some of them are hatched already and some are about to hatch. And it's great to see new babies and to have new births. But I tell you, I said it last week and I mean it. God, thank you for the new births, but God, would you give us some new spiritual births? And to see some new people come to trust Christ and some babes in Christ be born, because ultimately that's what we're about, is getting the gospel out and seeing new people come to trust Christ. I'm thankful for the guests, and I'm thankful that we get to tick off people that come along. No, not to tick. That just sounds wrong. We come to church so we can tick you off. No, mark them off on the list, and to be able to say, hey, people have come, a fish here and a fish there, and accounting that. That's good. The vast majority of people that come to church here are already saved and are already Christians. And I think, man, God, would you allow us to reach the lost? And it's not that we haven't interacted with the lost. There's been lots of people who have been given the gospel face to face or in a tract or invited or pointed to Jesus. And it's like, God, would you allow us to win some people to Jesus? Would you allow us to see some new births? God, we're not much, but I tell you, Jesus took 12 men and turned the world upside down for Christ. The church of Philadelphia, the church at Philadelphia, it says this about them. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door. It's an open door of opportunities. He says, I've set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. That church at Philadelphia was greatly blessed by God, and they were given the keys of David, and what you open, no man can shut, and what you shut, no man can open. But God blessed them with certain opportunities, not because they were influential, but actually because they were the opposite, that they were actually sort of nobodies, and they didn't really have much influence. And they said, and Jesus says about that church, thou hast a little strength. You're not powerful. You're not rich like the Laodiceans. You don't have a long history like the Ephesians. You're not like other churches. You're not in a prominent position. You're just sort of a nobody church. But he says, thou hast a little strength, and because you have kept my word, and thou hast not denied my name, I set before you an open door. You know what they were? They were a little church. They were a little church placed into the hands of the Lord and greatly multiplied. I hold the view, and we won't chase this rabbit too much, but I hold the view that those 7 churches in Asia Minor that are there in Revelation cover the church age from Jesus when he ascended all the way to Jesus coming back again. And the history of the church is laid out prophetically via those 7 churches. And if you look at that layout and you see coming out of the Middle Ages, the medieval period, and you see the Reformation period, and you see some names that start to go and grow. And then during the 1800s, there was great opportunities with the gospel. And there was so many missionaries that went everywhere, and the gospel expanded throughout England and throughout the US and into China and Asia and Africa and into India. There was opportunities. It wasn't that they had great strength and great ability, but they actually just took a step of faith. And God took those, took the effort, took what they had, they placed it back into the hands of God, and he blew upon it, and it multiplied. Little strength. You say, I can't do what God would have me to do. I can't get up and be a preacher. I can't do something for God. It's not in me. I don't have the ability. Yeah, absolutely. That's the point, is to acknowledge I have very little to offer, and God says, that's just enough. That's all I need. Nothing in my hand I bring, simply to the cross I cling, is how the hymn writer says about salvation. We get saved by nothing. We come empty before God, and he does it. So why do we think that now that we're saved, we have something to offer? He didn't save us because we have something to offer, because we have talents and abilities, and because we are the bee's knees. No, we're nothing. We're low. We have empty hands. But that's ultimately what he is looking for, is for us to acknowledge, hey, we're empty. We have nothing to offer. We've got very little strength. God, would you do something through us that is purely of you, to feed 5,000 and then have 12 baskets left over? That's amazing. That's not possible. It is with God. It is with the lad and his lunch and the Lord. It's possible. There's so many stories we could tell all the way through the Bible, I guess, of faith, to just people who said, I don't have much to offer. I don't have much to give, but it's just giving it to God and trusting him. I was going to combine, because the next story is Peter walking on the water, getting out of the boat in the midst of the storm, taking faith and taking that step of faith and getting out of the boat. And I want to preach this next week about either sea sunk or boat bound. Which one would you rather be? To give you a thought. And you say, what are you even talking about? To be sea sunk, like to be sunk in the sea, or to just stay in the boat and be boat bound and never like in the safety of the boat. We probably normally want to be in the boat, right? The safety, it's solid, it's okay. It's rough out there and I just want to stay in the comfort of the boat. Peter at least was willing to get out of the boat, take a risk, and willing to sink in faith of following Jesus. And we don't look at his failure as, oh, that Peter. We all, I think, or at least I do, I look at that and think, man, I wish I had the faith to get out of the boat. I wish I had the faith to be sunk in the sea. I wouldn't even be in that position, because I'm the guy that'd be like, I'm going to stay in the boat. I'd be the one that's boat bound. But I'd much rather, in my spirit, I want to be sea sunk. I want to be sunk in the sea and stand out there. I want to get to that next week. But I want to do the foundation of it this week to say, hey, you don't have to have great things, big things. It's just little things placed in the master's hand, and let him use what we offer. You might say, I'm old. I don't have much to offer him anymore. If you're alive, you have a spirit, you have prayer, you have faith. Just place what little faith, and you'll place your prayers. Let God multiply it. Gray hair shouldn't stop us from serving God. Little strength and health shouldn't stop us from serving God. Abilities and influence, personality. You know, I look around and think, man, I know people who are just magnetic personalities, and it's like as soon as they say something, everybody just hangs on their words, and they just gather people around them instantly. They're the ones that God will use. You know, I've noticed that they're the ones the devil uses. They have such confidence in their own personality and their own ability that they mess up royally. I think it's a blessing to say, man, I've got nothing to offer. I'm nobody. And even when you're a nobody, our still pride rises up and says, I can do it in my own strength. And it's like, no. Paul says, we have a treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency might be of him and not of us. We're just dirt at the end of the day. We're made from the dirt. We come from it. God has breathed his spirit and given us life. And when we die, the body goes back. We are weak and frail and of this world. But he says, give your life to me, and I will do something of you. Not in your own strength, not in your own ability, not according to your personality or your wisdom and your intellect or your talent or nothing like that. Just give your little to me, and I will use it and multiply it. Can you imagine that little lad coming back to his mother that day? How was your lunch, Mum? Son. Mum, you will never guess who ate your lunch. Everybody ate your lunch. What you placed in my little sack as I ran out the door, Jesus took it and fed everybody, and everybody has gone home satisfied and full by what you provided to me, Mum. Can you believe that? And she's just thinking, I can't believe it. I can't believe that what little I gave you has been so mightily used by the Master. And I'm sure she's praising God. And anytime you see a child that rises up and serves God as a second generation, you might say, man, God, you're using, thank you. I pour in a little and you give back a lot. It's a blessing. And there's so many other ways that we can say it, but I want to encourage you, at least a part A before part B of next week, just to at least acknowledge, and maybe it's this story that actually gave Peter a few hours later the confidence to step out, that he saw the mighty miracle of what Jesus is capable of doing, and he was ready to step out, that he could take little amounts and do much with it. And he did. And so I would say, let's be encouraged by the passage tonight. Let our faith be increased and say, God, I don't have much to offer. Great, nor did the lad. I don't have much of a lunch. Great, nor did the lad. Just place it in the hands of the Lord and leave it with him and let him do something great with it. Would you bow your heads and your hearts before him?